Excellent. Okay, let's talk about some of those values, some of those things that you're fighting for, that you're standing for. I see that you are a strong supporter of workers' right to unionize, as well as provide a safe and intimidation-free environment to do so, which is really some of the things that are the most under attack, in my opinion. That labor's rights, not only directly from politicians, but also from trade policies that really weaken the strength of labor unions. So tell me, where do you stand on that? Where do you stand on the TPP? What are you going to do in that vein?
Sure. I will flat out say it now. I am against TPP. I believe it's a disaster. It just continues. We've heard it. It's NAFTA on steroids. There's no way around it. So many of the policies within the structure of that deal have nothing to do with trade. It has only to do with advancing corporate interests, whether it's drug patents. If someone can tell me what drug patents to protect the pharmaceutical industry, what that has to do with trade, I would love to hear it. Because quite frankly, all that sounds like is that they just want to make sure that there will never be a generic brought to market. They'll make sure that no country can organize and negotiate lower drug prices. So I'm flat out against TPP. I believe we need to start having fair trade deals. And as you alluded to, it does weaken workers' rights. It does weaken a worker if a factory worker's job is subject to being lost to Mexico or an Asian country, whatever the case may be, in India. That all a CEO has to say is, well, you're either going to take these dirt wages or you're going to lose your job. Right. And who does that benefit? It doesn't benefit the economy. It doesn't benefit the work. It benefits the bottom line of this with the CEO, and it benefits the company. And so for me, unionizing, especially in Las Vegas, it's such a huge, a huge issue, especially when you get to the casinos. My wife is actually a table games dealer at one of the casinos, and some of them are unionized. Some of the casinos are not. And she is unfortunately not unionized. And so a lot of times she faces, whether it's hostile coworkers, customers, there's no protections. If she complains, she could be out of there. And I don't know who that can benefit it, because it's not the worker. And it only, if you have numbers and strength, there's strength in numbers, and, to make sure that you're able to negotiate higher wages, better protections, better healthcare, that matters, and that gives the workers, at least puts them on an even playing field when it comes to dealing with management.
Right. And speaking of workers, I see that you strongly support $15 an hour minimum wage.
Absolutely.
Let's just applaud there. I want you to tell me, though, what do you feel? What do you feel the difference is, besides just the raw numbers, right? But this argument for 12, like let's settle for 12. What have you seen in your district that says that 12 is not going to cut it? 15 is what we need.
Sure. Study after study. You talk to economists, you read studies. $12, yeah, it'll help. It's better than 8.
Right.
But it's not enough. And you get to a point where you need to work, I believe the number at 60 hours you'd have to work 55 hours a week just to have the bare minimum of a 2-bedroom apartment. Well, if you have a family of 5, well, first of all, a 2-bedroom apartment's not going to cut it. Right. That doesn't include food. Electricity prices out here are sky high. You've got food prices, gas prices. So $12, while that's a great middle ground and that's wonderful and that might be progress for the sake of progress is not progress. And we need to do a better job and understanding that just passing something, we only may get one shot at doing that. And we have to make sure that we do it right. And $15 an hour, it wasn't just something that was pulled out of thin air and just concocted,
Exactly.
And, if we want to be real, the real minimum wage should be about $21 had it kept up with inflation. So if we really want to, if we want to talk about compromise, I think $15 might be the compromise.
Especially if you're talking about the amount of efficiencies that they get out of workers now. I believe it was $22 an hour. That's the efficiency that they're getting out of the average worker now, whereas we're paying something far less than that. Let me ask you this question: what type of in terms of We're talking about trade. We're talking about labor unions. What type of labor laws would you like to see enacted? And a second part of that question is, what kind of trade would you vote for if you don't support the TPP? So what type of trade would you support?
Well, when it comes to trade, I think we have to be realistic, and I think we have to start protecting our workers and not just the multinational corporations. So when it comes to that, we need to start protecting American industries. So again, fair trade, I mean, free trade is fine, but I just don't see the benefit to the average worker, like I was stating. And I think, you know, while we need to have dialogue with other nations, and trade is a big promotion of that, making sure that we actually are able to sell our products that are made by American workers, that has to be the forefront and the outline of every trade deal. Mm-hmm. And right now we don't have that, you know. So, you know, Nike, for instance, if they're in with the TPP, they support it. Well, that's great. They have their factories in countries that pay, you know, 8 cents a day, you know. So when they're just increasing their profit margin so that when they ship their goods back to the United States, well, they're getting both ends. They're paying their workers nothing, and they're also getting all the benefits without having to pay to import their goods. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a problem. So that decimates American workers. That decimates American manufacturers. So when it comes to worker protections, we need to have better. It's a wide-ranging issue, and I'll try to narrow it and try to keep it as brief as possible. But when it comes to worker protections, you know, a lot of things that are ignored are, say, maternity leave. That's a worker protection. So that you know, a mother that just gave birth doesn't have to spend only 12 weeks with their child, and then make sure that not only is it paid, but make sure that when they come back, they actually have the same job. Because oftentimes what happens is, yeah, you get those 12 weeks off, you could be fired the week after you come back. Right. So that's a worker protection. A worker protection is, again, being able to make sure that make sure that you're able to unionize without threat of being fired. Make sure that you're never intimidated. The same measures we do to protect the ballot box when we vote in November in every election, we need to do the same when it comes to allowing workers in the workplace to do the same and have the privacy to do that and not be threatened, not to have videos used against them, you know, threatening, you know, all the horror of unionizing.
Let me ask you this, and I